As September 30th, 2025 approaches, a sense of déjà vu settles over Washington. The city's iconic landmarks stand as silent witnesses to a drama that has become all too familiar in recent years. Once again, the United States faces the looming threat of a government shutdown, a scenario that disrupts the lives of millions of Americans and sends ripples through the global economy. Congress has failed to pass the necessary funding bills for the new fiscal year, exposing the deep and persistent partisan divides that have come to define the nation's politics. The legislative chambers, once places of spirited debate and compromise, now echo with gridlock and frustration. This isn't just a procedural hiccup, it's a high-stakes political standoff, with both parties digging in their heels over spending levels and policy priorities. The atmosphere is tense, negotiations are fraught, and the stakes could not be higher for ordinary Americans. The Republican-controlled Congress and the Democratic White House are locked in a bitter deadlock, unable to find common ground. At the heart of the dispute is the extension of Affordable Care Act tax credits, a flashpoint that has come to symbolize the broader ideological rift between the two parties. Democrats argue that these tax credits are essential for millions of Americans to maintain access to affordable health care, especially as costs continue to rise and economic uncertainty lingers. Meanwhile, Republicans oppose the credits, raising concerns about the growing cost to taxpayers and the potential for these benefits to attract more undocumented immigrants, further straining public resources. This single issue has become a proxy for much larger debates about the future of healthcare, the nation's approach to immigration, and the ever-present question of fiscal responsibility. Each side sees the standoff as a test of their core values. For everyday Americans, the cycle of crisis governance is more than just political theater. It signals a breakdown in the willingness to compromise, eroding public trust and undermining faith in the very institutions meant to serve them. Around the world, allies and adversaries alike watch closely as the U.S. struggles to perform even the most basic functions of government. Each shutdown raises new doubts about America's reliability as a global leader and partner. While the immediate disruptions are clear, closed offices, delayed paychecks, and halted services, the long-term damage to American credibility and democratic norms may be even more profound, leaving a legacy of uncertainty for years to come. A government shutdown happens when Congress and the President fail to pass the 12 annual appropriation bills. Discretionary spending halts, affecting everything from national parks to food safety inspections. Agencies must shut down operations under the Anti-Deficiency Act, which bars spending without appropriations. Mandatory spending, like Social Security and Medicare, continues, but most other services stop. Essential employees, such as military and air traffic controllers, must work without pay until a funding bill passes. Non-essential employees are furloughed, placed on unpaid leave, and forbidden from working. This disrupts services nationwide, from scientific research to passport processing. The distinction between essential and non-essential is about immediate necessity, not importance. The result, a cascade of disruptions that reach far beyond Washington. The 2025 shutdown is a case study in the persistent and deepening dysfunction of American government. It's not just a single event, but a reflection of years of mounting polarization and institutional breakdown. Each time Congress faces a funding deadline, the same patterns emerge, revealing how the system's checks and balances can become obstacles rather than safeguards. In a divided government, paralysis is almost inevitable. The two chambers, controlled by opposing parties or narrow majorities, often find themselves locked in a standoff, unable to move forward on even the most basic responsibilities. In the House, a slim Republican majority means that just a handful of lawmakers can wield enormous influence. These small factions, often representing the most ideologically extreme positions, can block compromise and demand concessions that make consensus nearly impossible. Meanwhile, the Senate's 60-vote supermajority rule is designed to encourage bipartisanship, but in today's hyper-partisan climate, it often serves as a roadblock. Even widely supported measures can be derailed by a determined minority, making progress slow and frustrating. Democrats, knowing their leverage, push for priorities like ACA tax credits, while hardline Republicans dig in, refusing to accept any deal that doesn't meet their demands. The result is a legislative tug-of-war, with each side unwilling to give ground. The Speaker of the House is caught in the middle, forced to choose between negotiating with Democrats, which risks angering their own party's base, or siding with hardliners and ensuring any deal is dead on arrival in the Senate. This internal strife doesn't just stall legislation, it breeds resentment and mistrust, deepening the divisions within Congress and making future cooperation even harder. To avoid a shutdown, leaders must find common ground and build coalitions. But in today's political environment, incentives often favor grandstanding and confrontation over compromise and quiet deal-making. Many lawmakers worry more about facing a primary challenge from their own party than about losing a general election. This fear discourages them from reaching across the aisle, as any hint of bipartisanship can be used against them by more extreme opponents. The result is a government that lurches from crisis to crisis, with practical governance sacrificed for the sake of partisan purity and political survival. And so, the cycle continues. Shutdown threats, last-minute deals, and little incentive for anyone to break the pattern. Until the underlying incentives change, gridlock will remain a defining feature of American politics. A shutdown hits federal workers hardest. Hundreds of thousands are furloughed or forced to work without pay. For many, this means immediate financial crisis. Bills don't stop just because paychecks do. The impact ripples outward. National parks close, passport processing stalls, and food safety inspections are curtailed. Programs like the National Flood Insurance Program halt, disrupting real estate and local economies. Repeated shutdowns erode morale and make it harder to attract and retain skilled public servants. The result is a slow degradation of the civil service and the services Americans rely on. The human cost is both immediate and long-lasting. The economic impact of a shutdown is swift and widespread. Each week of closure can shave up to 0.3 percentage points off quarterly GDP, billions lost. Government contractors and businesses that rely on federal spending face layoffs and cash flow crises. The ripple effect hits local economies, supply chains, and job markets nationwide. Uncertainty dampens consumer and business confidence, stalling major purchases and investments. Key economic data stops flowing, making it harder for the Federal Reserve and investors to gauge the economy. With a fragile real estate market and volatile interest rates, a shutdown could worsen existing vulnerabilities. The Fed, flying blind, risks policy errors that could have lasting consequences. The longer the shutdown, the greater the economic damage. To avoid shutdowns, Congress often passes continuing resolutions, temporary funding bills. CRs keep the government open but lock agencies into last year's budgets, stalling new projects and long-term planning. This stopgap approach wastes money and stifles innovation. Politically, CRs offer breathing room but also prolong gridlock, reducing urgency for real compromise. The cycle of short-term fixes leads to perpetual crisis, with deadlines always looming. The current crisis shows that CRs merely postpone tough decisions, not solve them. Over-reliance on CRs creates unstable, inefficient governance. The public pays the price for this dysfunction. A U.S. government shutdown sends shockwaves through financial markets, instantly signaling political instability to investors and the world. The uncertainty surrounding government operations makes it difficult for businesses and individuals to plan for the future, and this anxiety is quickly reflected in the markets. Investors, wary of the increased risk in U.S. assets, often respond by selling off stocks and demanding higher yields on Treasury bonds. This flight to safety can trigger sharp declines in the stock market and push borrowing costs higher, not just for the government, but for everyone. Even modest increases in interest rates can add billions of dollars to the national debt, straining the federal budget. As the government pays more to service its debt, less money is available for essential programs, infrastructure, and public services, affecting millions of Americans. Higher rates ripple through the economy, making mortgages, car loans, and business financing more expensive. This slows down home sales, discourages investment, and can even force small businesses to close their doors, leading to job losses and reduced economic growth. America's global reputation takes a hit as repeated shutdowns erode confidence in its ability to govern effectively. International partners and investors begin to question the reliability of the U.S. as a financial leader. The dollar's dominance as the world's reserve currency is no longer taken for granted. As rivals look for alternatives, the U.S. risks losing its unique position in the global financial system, which could have long-term consequences for American influence and prosperity. Shutdowns also stoke fears of a potential U.S. debt default, a scenario that would be far more catastrophic than a temporary government closure. The mere possibility shakes public confidence and can cause panic in global markets. The same political gridlock that leads to shutdowns can also prevent lawmakers from raising the debt ceiling, putting the nation at risk of missing critical payments and defaulting on its obligations. Financial markets watch these recurring crises as warning signs of deeper dysfunction within the U.S. political system, raising doubts about the country's long-term stability and economic leadership. If lawmakers can't even agree to keep the government open, it raises a troubling question. Can they be trusted to prevent a catastrophic default and safeguard the nation's financial future? History shows shutdowns always end, but not without pain and political fallout. 14 shutdowns since 1980 have ended through compromise, often after public pressure mounts. The blame game intensifies as impacts grow, with the public punishing whichever side seems more unreasonable. Sometimes, moderate lawmakers broker deals from the center, defying party extremes. Shutdowns end when the cost of holding out outweighs the benefits. Polls drop, stories of hardship spread, and leaders are forced to act. The resolution is rarely total victory. It's a reluctant compromise. The lesson: shutdowns end with necessity, not triumph. The deepest damage from shutdowns is the erosion of public trust in government. Each crisis signals that leaders can't perform basic functions, fueling cynicism and apathy. This distrust weakens democracy, encourages anti-establishment movements, and makes stable policymaking harder. Constant threats of shutdowns degrade government capacity, drive away talent, and disrupt long-term planning. The government becomes reactive, not proactive, unable to tackle big challenges. Breaking this cycle requires renewed commitment to negotiation and the national interest. Without change, shutdowns risk becoming a permanent feature of a broken system.